Alright, so let's go over some basic edits that we can do with our shapes and our lines. I'm going to start over here where we work with the manual resize and manual rotate. So this all involves using that bounding box. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have my black arrow tool, so the V key, and I'm going to click on this star shape right here, and you can see I get that bounding box. I could start to resize this, but I want to make sure that I'm sizing it from the center and out. So if I click and release and then hit Command Z to undo, I'm going to go ahead and come back to that corner. I'm going to hold down on the Alt key and then I'll start to click and drag. And now you can see that it is sizing it from the center. But the next thing that I see is that as I'm sizing it, it's not maintaining the proportions. So in order to maintain the proportions as you size it, you need to also hold down on the Shift key. Again, getting good with that keyboard gymnastics, the handy Alt and Shift key. So I'll go ahead and make that a little bit bigger. And just for demo's sake, you can see that if I don't hover over one of these corners and instead I hover over the points of the segment, I can size it or stretch it sideways. I'll just do Command Z. I can also stretch it up and down. The other thing I wanted to point your attention to with this bounding box, if I hover right on the bounding box corner, I'm going to get kind of that sizing indicator. But if I go right outside of that, you're going to get the rotation indicator. So if I click and drag with that, now you can see I can actually rotate this shape. So that means I could size the shape and then rotate it and then size it again and rotate it. So go ahead, I would take some time and just practice getting used to that because we're going to be doing that quite a bit. Remember, as I'm sizing this, I'm holding the Alt and the Shift keys to make sure to maintain proportions. One more thing I wanted to show you is that you can actually reflect shapes using the bounding box. So if I click on this side and instead of stretching it this way, if I pull it in and I go past this center point, I'm actually reflecting it now along that axis. So I'll go ahead and reflect that. Hold down on the Shift key. Now I'm going to reflect and maintain the proportions, and now I will move it back into place. So just hovering inside, okay, and clicking and dragging with that black arrow. Let's go ahead and explore copying shapes. So the easiest way I know of copying is clicking on a shape or a line, and what you need to look for is with the black arrow tool, I need to hover inside the shape or on the line, and I'm looking for that little rectangular dotted square that's telling me it's ready to move the shape. But now I'm just going to hold down on the Alt key and I'm going to get a pair of double arrows. It's a black and a white arrow. That's telling me that it's ready to copy whatever I'm clicking on. So holding down on the Alt key, I'm going to click and drag. And I'm just going to move another version of this shape right over to the side. I'll release the mouse first, then I'll release the Alt key. I'll go ahead and try that again. So I'm going to hold down on the Alt key. I'll click and drag, okay, and I'll kind of just get that roughly lined up. Release the mouse first and then release the Alt key. Now, if I hit Command and D, I can duplicate that same action process of copying. So this is a really cool feature when you need to create a series of repeated shapes or repeated lines. Let's go ahead and kind of play around with that down here. So I'm going to take this square, I'm going to select it and hover inside and look for that rectangular dotted box next to my black arrow. I'm going to hold down on the Alt key and I'm going to click and drag, but as I'm dragging, I'm going to hold down on the Shift key to make sure it locks into the 90-degree angles. Once I get it about to where I want to space it, I'm going to release the mouse, then release the keys, and then I will hit Command and D, and I will duplicate that. So I hit Command D twice, and I duplicated that same copy command. So let's go ahead, let's try duplicating these objects going the other way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one shape and then I'm going to hold down on the Shift key and select the other shape. And when I hold down on the Shift key, I'm able to select multiple objects. With the black arrow tool, I could click and drag a marquee box over all of those shapes and select them all that way as well. But now that I have them all selected, you can see there's a bounding box that goes around all of those shapes. Within the bounding box, I'm going to hold down on the shift on the Alt key, and I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to hold down on the Shift key to make sure I am moving them at 90 degrees. Once I have it where I want it, I need to release the mouse first, then release Shift and Alt. So now that I've performed the copy, I can duplicate that copy command. So I'll hold down on the command key and hit the D key once. I'll hit it twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. And when I'm done, I can just click outside. And there you can see I created a repeating series of shapes just using copy and duplicate. Let's go ahead and explore the other way of copying. So if I come over here to this black circle, I'm going to just do the traditional copy and paste. So if I click on this shape and do Command C and then hit Command and V for paste, it basically copies the shape and then pastes it near the center of your viewing area. So that means I'd have to come in here and move this back to where I want this to be. I'm going to show you another way that I like to copy and paste things that gives you a little more control. So I'm going to go ahead and select this outline circle shape, and I'll do the same thing. I'll do Command C, and then instead of hitting just Command V, I'm going to hit Command Shift and then V. And so what I just did is I copied the shape, but then I pasted it right on top of its footprints. You can also find these same commands up here in the Edit menu. So Edit, we have Copy, Paste, but we also have Paste in Place. So that's the one I just did. So now that I pasted that right in its place or right in its footprints, I can come over to the bounding box and I want to resize this new copy. Okay, so I'm going to hold down on the Alt key, hold down on the Shift key, and I will click and drag. And there you have a nice concentric circle that came from this original circle shape. Let's try the same thing again. So I'm going to select this circle, Command C, Command Shift V. So I pasted that in place. I'll come over to the corner of the bounding box, hold down Alt, hold down Shift, click and drag. I'm going to resize that copy. Okay, and everything stays right on that same center point. Okay, so the last thing you want to know how to do when you're editing your lines and your shapes is offsetting a path. So right here I've created a path, but there might be a case where I want another line that runs parallel or concentric with that same path. In that case, I'm going to use the offset path option. So to do that, I'm going to select this art line path, okay, and just like this says, I chose the path. I'm going to go up to Object. I'm going to go down to the Path option, and then I'm going to go to where it says Offset Path here in the menu. I'll click on that, okay, and this brings up a dialog box. So how much do you want to offset this path? Okay, before I do anything, I want to make sure that I can preview the transformation I'm going to make. So I'll hit the preview button, and you can see by default that's where I want it to be at. Don't worry about the joins for now or the miter limit, and I'll click OK. So now we have a whole separate path that is offset from the original. Let's go ahead and try that with some of these other shapes. So I'm going to click on this shape path here. I'll go Object, Path, Offset Path. I'll hit the Preview button. So you can see we're offsetting in the negative direction, so it's going towards the inside. I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of that minus sign, and then I'll click and unclick the preview again, and now you can see it is offsetting the path, okay, or increasing the offset, and then I'll click OK. I'll do it one more time. I'll click on this square, Object, Path, Offset Path, and this time I will bring back that minus sign, okay, onto the offset. I'll preview the offset, and then I'll click OK. Alright, so that is the basic